Good afternoon, everybody. We still have a few people logging in, so I'm going to give just another minute or two for folks to get in and get settled, and then we'll get right underway. Okay, great. We're just a little bit after 3, so I think we're all ready to go. So, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our webinar, Restaurant Insurance: The Secret Ingredient to Building Your Portfolio. My name is Richie Venner, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Distinguished Programs. I'm responsible for developing and leading the marketing initiatives across the business. I joined Distinguished in 2019, and I can't say I've enjoyed working someplace else, any more than I've been here at Distinguished. Before joining, I spent over 25 years in executive marketing positions at GE Capital and York Risk Services Group. Just a note before we get going, we'll be sending all the registrants copies of the slides, the webinar recording, and a PDF with the questions and the answers from today's session. If anyone has a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and time permitting, we'll get to all of those questions. Distinguished Programs is a leading national insurance program manager, providing specialized insurance programs for real estate, community associations, hotels, and restaurants. Serving the same core markets and partnering with the most stable and reputable carriers, Distinguished Programs' high-limit umbrella and primary insurance programs remain the clear choice in our area of specialty for superior coverage, competitive pricing, and attentive service. Joining us today is a great panel. I'm really excited for today. Heidi Strawman, our Senior Vice President of Primary Hospitality Programs, well known in the industry. Heidi oversees the overall strategy and management of Distinguished primary programs for restaurants and hotels. Heidi joined Distinguished in April 2019 with our acquisition of ProHost USA, a program administrator specializing in restaurants, where she served as president. She has an extensive background in building programs for restaurants and related risks at ProHost. Her career experience also includes a variety of positions at Twin City Group, a retail brokerage. She's a past president of Target Markets Program Administrators Association, which everyone knows is just Target Markets, and is currently on their advisory board. She's authored numerous articles about insuring restaurant exposures for a variety of industry magazines, including Risk and Insurance, Insurance Journal, Agent and Broker, and Rough Notes. Heidi earned a BA in government from Cornell and an MBA from Metropolitan State University. Joining Heidi is Eric Schmidt. Eric is our Regional Vice President of Sales for Distinguished Central and Eastern Territories. He's responsible for new business sales for all products and leading our regional sales team. Eric joined Distinguished in 2020 from Markel Specialty, where he worked as a senior sales manager. Before that, Eric was a business development manager at AIG and in various positions at Nationwide Insurance. Eric received his bachelor's degree in marketing at the Ivy College of Business at Iowa State University. To start off the program, let's run through some of our restaurant insurance program basics. This will help ground everyone in the program. It also has a lot of overlap with the many pre-submitted questions that we got when we solicited attendees for this webinar. So I'm going to start with you, Heidi. Heidi, can you give us an overview of Distinguished Restaurant Insurance Program?
You bet, Richie. I think that one of the key things to remember about what we offer in the restaurant insurance space is that we really are a one-stop shop for restaurant insurance. We not only offer key primary coverages, including property, general liability, liquor liability, EPLI, cyber, and a lot of specialized restaurant product enhancements, but we also have umbrella coverage, which ranges anywhere from $1 million up to $150 million limits. So we truly have that broad-based suite of coverages that brokers can come to us and often get almost everything they need to give their restaurant clients the coverage that they need. Another really important aspect of what we do is we offer the expertise to help brokers understand the coverages that their clients need for restaurants. We have an experienced team of restaurant underwriters. All they're doing all day is looking at restaurant submissions. You're not going to deal with someone who is just underwriting a dry cleaner and then moving to a gas station and then moving to some other type of risk and then looking at a restaurant. You're going to be working with someone who understands restaurants, sees a variety on a daily basis, and can really help dig into a specific account and say, look, here's where they're lacking. Here's where we can offer something that's maybe a hole in their current program, and really work with the broker to develop the best solution for their clients.
That's great. And Heidi, I'm not quite sure if I have this right, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but members of your team have up to 30 years experience in underwriting restaurants and working with restaurants. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. We have some real long-term experience, myself included. Not to give away anyone's age or anything so delicate as that, but yes, we have a lot of years under our belt.
Oh, that's great. Eric, this is for you. Could you just give a overview of the products, maybe a little insight into the specific products in the program?
Yeah, sure, Richie. And Heidi alluded to this a little bit on the prior slide, but I think the main point of this is that we have the ability to offer a single solution. So anywhere from the package to a high limit umbrella. And then we also have some specialized coverages like the cyber liability that's becoming an increased exposure by the day. And then unfortunately, the reality of today's world, that the deadly weapons protection is something we can offer a coverage for. So the benefit of working with us on these is that you can come to Heidi, you can come to her team, you can come to me, and you have a single point of contact to be able to run through this and offer you a solution and coverage for your client's needs.
That's great. Heidi, I know we're not all things to everybody. What segments specifically do we serve?
We do serve a broad range of restaurants, but you're right, not everything to everybody. We write a lot of fine dining restaurants. That's one of the key areas that we serve. And it's important to note that fine dining has kind of been redefined in recent years. So we used to, a few years ago, think about fine dining as strictly white tablecloth, and that was really the definition of a fine dining restaurant. Those restaurants have become few and far between, quite frankly. Even in major metropolitan areas, there are fewer and fewer true white linen tablecloth restaurants. We consider fine dining to also be those chef-driven, food-driven, foodie, as some people would call them, restaurants that might have a more casual atmosphere, but have a very high level of food, service, and they're really the equivalent of fine dining in every respect, except for maybe they don't have white tablecloths. So that's part of the definition of fine dining for us. We write many of those types of restaurants. We also entertain family/casual dining, which basically means a restaurant with full table service that is not as upscale or usually as expensive as a fine dining restaurant. We also serve the fast casual segment. Not everybody understands the difference between fast casual and fast food, so just a quick definition there. A fast casual restaurant is a quick service or limited service restaurant, usually where you order at the counter, but often where you then are seated and maybe your food's brought to you, or maybe you have a buzzer or there's some kind of signal when your food's ready and you go back to the counter to pick it up. But it is a higher level of both food and ambiance than a typical fast food franchise type restaurant. I'm pointing out that difference because we do not write traditional fast food restaurants, but we do write fast casual restaurants. And fast casual comes in many shapes and sizes. It could be your local deli. It could also be a franchise of some kind. So there's quite a range within what we would consider fast casual. We also write wine bars. There's a lot of accounts, locations that consider themselves wine bars. that still offer quite a robust food menu, and those are the types of wine bars we're targeting. It should be noted that we don't write wine bars that serve have higher alcohol receipts than they do food receipts. So it is limited in terms of that segment, but we do write quite a few wine bars nevertheless. We also entertain off-premises caterers. Another important thing to note, the off-premise, we are not a market for event venues or on-premise catering banquet hall type facilities. But if you are a caterer that has some kind of a kitchen facility, but does not have a premise where you are holding events and is just serving food but food and possibly also alcohol at events that are not specializing in weddings, those are accounts that we're also happy to look at. And then the final category is something that's kind of a new upcoming in the restaurant segment, ghost kitchens. I think more and more people have heard of ghost kitchens for a while. This was sort of an obscure term that many people were like, what is a ghost kitchen? Well, a ghost kitchen is literally just a kitchen. They do not have any on-premise seating, and in fact don't have customers coming onto their premise. Everything is done through a third party, generally a third party delivery service. Maybe occasionally they might have their own first party delivery. That's pretty rare, and we do not cover auto for first party delivery. I'll just say that right now. Typically a ghost kitchen is a facility where customers are ordering through some kind of online app. The food is prepared at the ghost kitchen, and then a third party delivery service like an Uber Eats, for example, is coming and picking up that order and delivering it to the customer. A few other points that I want to make that are sort of underwriting segments within these types of restaurants that I just mentioned is that we do write a lot of new ventures. We're happy to look at new ventures as long as they have a full-time manager that is experienced. That's really the key for us. We also write sushi and raw bars. I want to mention that because some of our competition shies away from those, but we are a market for those. We also write hibachi style cooking exposures. So if you have those Japanese style steakhouses with the hibachi cooking with proper safeguards, we will write that type of account as well. And finally, the last thing I wanted to mention was that there are certain incidental exposures that we see with restaurants, such as bakeries or maybe a gourmet market or a small retail exposure. As long as those are incidental to the restaurant, those can also be eligible for our program.
Okay, great. So specialized, but still a pretty robust offering.
You bet.
Okay. Yeah, we got a lot of questions in ahead of time, Eric, on who is our carrier partner. So a lot of our brokers want to understand who that is.
Sure, yeah. So our Arch is our carrier partners. So we work directly with Arch, and I think the important thing about work with Arch is that you can only access that carrier through Distinguished. So you can't access them direct. You can't access them through a wholesaler. You have to come to Distinguished to access them. And I think that's important because if you're competing for an account that you don't currently control, and you know, everybody comes with a lot of the same carriers to the table or goes to initially with quotes. So coming with something a little bit different can distinguish you, no pun intended there, but from the marketplace potentially. So it is a unique option that we have. They're an admitted A-rated carrier, and we can write all lines within the package there with Arch. And as Heidi had mentioned before, we do have the ability to write new ventures, so that's an acceptable business for us.
Great. Okay, awesome. Another question that we got a lot is, are we available in all 50 states? Heidi, could you answer that for us?
We're available in all 50 states except one of my favorite states, Alaska. So sorry, Alaska. Otherwise, we do have some underwriting restrictions, whether it be coastal or there's some states that are kind of tough from a liquor perspective, but we do have availability in the other states.
Okay. All right, thank you. Eric, another question we got a lot of is what coverages we have that are specifically designed for restaurants?
Sure. I mean, without reading each one to everyone, I think there's a few that I want to really focus on this. And Heidi had mentioned our focus on fine dining. And I think third bullet point there, the retail price wine valuation is an important and unique coverage, in that in the event of a loss, we have the ability to pay the menu price of what the wine is. So I think that's distinct in the marketplace. And then one that isn't listed here on the slide, and I'm in Texas, in North Texas, and I got this question a lot over the last year because, as many of you probably know, we had an unexpected and historic freeze about a year and a half ago, and led to a lot of overhead power line transmission failure, and that's actually unique coverage that we can offer on our policy as well.
Okay, all right, great. Heidi, are there additional coverages that Distinguished provides for insurance policyholders?
Yes, well, we actually have a very broad range of coverages, and one of the things that we specialize in really is being able to craft a customized coverage package for any given policyholder. So we do have various options. They can include things like flood and quake for qualified accounts. A couple separate policies that we can offer are listed on this slide. We do have a deadly weapons protection policy. This is something that unfortunately has been in the spotlight in our country, and we do get a lot of inquiries about this coverage. It's something that we're happy to educate brokers a bit more on in terms of the details, but it can be an important crisis response type coverage that restaurants can benefit from. We also have two options on our cyber coverage. We do have a cyber option with Arch, which is an excellent option, especially for smaller accounts, but many mid-sized to larger restaurants are going to be interested in our higher limit cyber liability, which also offers broader coverage than we do with the Arch cyber. This higher limit cyber policy is written with Beasley. So between those two cyber options, we feel that we're really well positioned to meet the needs of any of the restaurants that we are able to quote in our program.
Okay, all right. Those are great additional policies. And I agree, it's tough. The deadly weapons is unfortunately so necessary. So it's a good policy to offer. It's just a shame that that's so important these days. All right, so we're going to go into some more, I'm going to call them general questions. We covered a lot of things that were very specific to our program and products. But we got a number of questions from the audience ahead of time on, like I said, sort of more broad things. One that I think I saw the most on, and Eric, I'm going to give this to you. Why do restaurants need high umbrella limits?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, I mean, you don't have to look very hard in the news or a Google search to find, you know, how difficult, I guess, the legal environment is, and how much some of these juries are awarding in lawsuits and whatnot. And, you know, I think most of us probably on this call look through loss runs every day and see, you know, with slip and falls and foodborne illness or, you know, whatever it may be, regardless of whether it's a restaurant or anything else, you know, these losses can go nuclear pretty quick. So I think, you know, auto losses in any restaurant that sells liquor, you know, we've all probably seen a loss that's blown through the GL limits pretty easily and well into the umbrella and excess limits. So I think that having the ability to, for Distinguished to be able to put up high limit umbrellas on top of the GL, the Arch package, is a distinct advantage in the marketplace. And if you've not worked with Distinguished before, not only in restaurants, but all of our products we offer, we have the ability to put up high limit umbrellas. But again, I think really it's about protecting your business, protecting your assets, and that's what we have the ability to do with the umbrella limits that we can offer. And we offer up to 150 million in limits on a single location.
One additional thing that I just want to add to what Eric said, which was a great rundown of why restaurants need high umbrella limits, is that we make it extra simple because you can deal with a single underwriter to get both your underlying code and your umbrella code, and you don't have to coordinate things and go back and forth between someone that's doing your primary and someone that's doing your umbrella. If it turns out somewhere along the way, for whatever reason, the primary is not eligible for a quote, we can still keep working on the umbrella, and you're not going to have to flip it to a different underwriter. So we really try to make it easy for the broker to come to us with both, and we'll do both if we can, or if we can only do one or the other, we can still do that, and you're still working with the same person.
Okay. All right, great. Heidi, while I've got you, what are some of the most common causes of losses for restaurants? Not just umbrella, but altogether.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that over many years of experience in the restaurant industry, the most common cause of loss is the slips, trips, and falls. And this is something that I think every broker that works with restaurants would recognize as a challenge. I also think it's an area where brokers can really help educate their clients about the importance of maintenance, understanding where those hazards exist in their restaurant. Do they have level changes? Do they have maybe poor lighting in some areas? Is there a need for a handrail to be added? I think that a good restaurant broker can really add value for their clients by doing a walkthrough of the restaurant premise and talk not only about how they handle if something wet is on the floor, do they have procedures in place to identify it quickly, mark it, get it cleaned up, but also to just identify those hazards that might exist that are going to really increase their exposure in this area, because we see everything from minor injuries to some pretty significant injuries that can come from a slip, trip, or fall. In the area of property, fires, usually fires that originate in kitchens, and water damage are the two biggest causes of loss, most frequent causes of loss, I should say. With kitchen fires, training of employees is extremely important to know how to extinguish that fire quickly when it arises. That can save you, can turn, what could have been a very large loss into a small incident and no interruption to your business. It's also important to keep those ANSEL systems serviced and in good working order, because that's going to be key to getting that kitchen fire extinguished. We do see an increasing number of water damage claims. Some of these arise from extreme weather, areas that didn't used to have freezes that may experience very cold weather. That is definitely an increasing exposure. It's particularly significant if a restaurant has perhaps undergone some renovations and or maybe it's a recently opened restaurant and there may have been areas around pipes, for example, that weren't properly insulated. This is another area where brokers can have those conversations with their restaurants before the loss occurs, try to bring it to their attention, have an inspection done, make sure that they've got proper insulation and safeguards in place. In the area of crime, thankfully, we don't see a lot of frequency in this area in our book of business, but the most common crime loss we see, unfortunately, is employee theft. There are opportunities for this in restaurant operations because employees are handling cash, they're handling credit cards, and it's just a very good area for restaurant management to have controls in place and make sure that they're on top of that potential and doing everything they can to eliminate opportunities for those thefts to occur. And then from an umbrella perspective, liquor-related claims do pose that risk for restaurants. They're infrequent relative to other causes of loss, but they can be very severe. Fatalities are not uncommon with liquor-related claims, and that's one of the reasons, as Eric mentioned before, that people need umbrellas, but hopefully you'll never have to use it because it can certainly have impacts for your business if you experience a liquor-related loss. So tips training, making sure everybody understands the importance of identifying potential hazards in the liquor service of your restaurant, and eliminating them running a safe operation from a liquor standpoint is really going to be key to keeping those umbrella losses off your experience.
Okay. All right, thank you, Heidi. And, I'm going to stick with you. The next question is one we had a whole bunch of people ask it ahead of time, and I'm looking at the questions that are coming in. It looks like 7 or 8 people asked this question during the webinar. What are the common reasons why we might decline a restaurant risk?
Thanks, Richie. Some of the most common reasons are listed on this slide. I will just give a few editorial comments here. We don't write hard to place, what I would consider hard to place property. So that might be high protection class, 8 to 10, which we do not write, or coastal exposure. Those are the 2 of the most common reasons why the property portion may be ineligible. Now keep in mind that we are still a market in a lot of those cases for the rest of the account. So just because we can't write property doesn't mean we can't still look at the account. Restaurants that have entertainment beyond what we consider incidental. Now, incidental can be a little bit of a gray area, but for sure, if you have a restaurant that has a stage, is having cover charges, it has bands where people are really sitting for the purpose of listening to that music as opposed to providing background music. Those are some sort of key red flags to this is beyond incidental. We're not looking to write restaurants that are open past 1 a.m. This is just related to that liquor exposure that we talked about before. Generally, restaurants that are open past that time are drawing a crowd that's probably more about drinking than eating. Liquor sales in excess of our guidelines, that's kind of a given. We're writing restaurants, we're not writing bars. We can go higher in terms of percentage of liquor sales on fine dining restaurants, even into that 40 to 45% range if it's fine dining. If it's a casual restaurant, we're going to be looking to stay below 40%. Adverse loss experience, unfortunately, past experience is often a predictor of future experience. So if we see an account come in that's had a lot of loss frequency and or severity, that's probably a restaurant that we're not going to be interested in coding unless they've really taken documented steps to eliminate specific hazards that cause those losses. Then there might be an opportunity to look at it. Ineligible restaurant classes, I touched on some of this earlier. We don't write that traditional fast food segment. We also stay away from buffet style restaurants. They tend to be more prone to those slips and falls that I was discussing earlier because of people getting up and down to get more food from the buffet spilling on the floor, not always getting cleaned up right away. So we used to write those and didn't have great experience, which is why we stay away from them now. Live and learn, as they say. Sports bars, this is not always about liquor sales, so we do get a lot of these accounts in that might even be within an acceptable range from a liquor sales standpoint, but what we don't like about that type of account is game day specials, situations where you have a lot of fans gathering, sometimes fans that are on opposite sides of the team solidarity, shall we say. Sometimes they tend to clash with each other, and we've seen some assault and battery type issues in these accounts, even when the liquor sales aren't that high. And it's really because of specific time frames when they have those game-oriented events and specials going on. And then the final category is the first-party delivery, which I mentioned earlier. We'll write a restaurant with first-party delivery, but we will not be able to cover the auto.
Okay, all right. And that actually answers a question that one of our guests online had sent in. So thank you, Heidi.
Right.
So Eric, if someone listening today likes what they heard or has more questions, how do they submit business, or how do they find out more about what we're doing with restaurants?
Sure, thanks, Richie. Yeah, so if you're a registered broker with us, you probably already have a contact with your sales executive, or you maybe even worked with Heidi or someone on her team. So you can always reach out directly to them, to either of them, and submit business. If you're not registered with us, you can simply go to our website, distinguish.com, and there's a teal button in the upper right-hand corner where you can register your agency, and you can be registered in 10, 15 minutes and begin submitting business right away. You can look at all of the products available, restaurants and everything else, and submit from there. So our applications or supplemental applications for our package, And then if you do a monoline umbrella, the applications are online, so you can submit either to the sales executive or again to Heidi or a member of her team. I think again, kind of to close the loop on some of these things, but we're good at turning things around fast, and we have high limits available. So if you can get us all the information in one fell swoop, we have the ability to turn something around quickly for you. And again, we can write those high limit umbrellas. We talked a lot today about the potential exposures and the types of losses that can really drive that number up. So we have the ability to protect the business that way through our quality carrier partners like Arch and others that we work with on the umbrella. And again, we'll write in nearly everywhere in the country aside from Alaska.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, Eric. So we are actually running a little short on time. If we didn't get to your questions after this, we'll be sending everyone who registered an email with a PDF of all the questions and answers from today's session. And we'll also I will aggregate the questions that people had sent in during the session and answer those too and send it out to everybody. So since we are almost out of time, let me just ask our panelists, is there a final piece of advice you'd like to give to the audience? Heidi?
Well, come to Distinguish for all your restaurant needs. That's my best advice. That's serious advice, but I will also add to it, we want to consult with you. So we are happy if you are working on an account and you're wondering if it's a fit for us, contact us. You don't have to send us a full submission. I talk to brokers all the time about, like, does this restaurant fit? Let's look at the website. Let's see what questions we have. We are happy to do that, work with you, try to figure out before you put a lot of time into something, whether it's an account that might be a fit for us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Heidi. Eric?
Yeah, and I would reiterate that, get signed up and reach out to us and let's have the conversation. I had one a couple hours ago. I didn't get a full submission, but a Facebook page or a link tells me about all I need to know in a lot of cases, whether it's a start or a stop for us. So, but just reach out, have the conversation, get registered if you're not already, and we'd be excited to talk to you. This is a fast-growing program for us, and we're hungry to write more business. Again, no pun intended with the 100.
Great, thanks, Eric. All right, so I think that's all for today. If you enjoyed today's webinar, stay up to date on our latest events by following us on social media. We post a lot of information. So we post about the insurance market insights, industry news. You'll learn about our latest free webinars, ebooks, and case studies. I'd like to thank everybody who joined us on today's webinar. We had about 350 people sign up and around 150 people come, which is awesome. And I'd also in particular like to thank our panelists, Heidi Strawman and Eric Schmidt.
Thank you, Richie.
Yeah, thanks, Richie.